think we've all been a little bit dismayed at how hard it is to stop the oil from coming out of the sea floor. It just doesn't seem as though it would take that long. But at the same time, I can't imagine that British Petroleum or anyone else wants it to go on longer than it has to. And I guess there is some historical precedent for another similar kind of accident off Mexico taking a long time before it was fixed. So I've been reflecting on how this situation, although it is depressing to watch it unfold in the way that it has, I like to think of things as happening for a reason. And that although we don't always understand the reason in the moment, eventually when we can figure out why something happens, either on a personal level or in this case on a more global level, it can help us come to peace with it. Now, right now there's a lot of reactionary stuff going on both the left and the right, so to speak, and a desire for blame. And that's natural because there's such a helpless and hopeless feeling that comes from watching the oil continue to spew out every day. And it's natural to want to point fingers and blame when there is that kind of feeling. And maybe some good will come from that in terms of it becoming less likely to reoccur in the future. However, looking at this on a more symbolic level, I've been feeling as though the reason that it's happening is because oil's time as fuel is coming to an end. And we recognized this several decades ago. In the 70s, it became clear. But then we ignored it. And as a metaphor, what about, the things in our life that aren't working, but then, after we realize that they're not working, we kind of go back to our old ways and do things again, the way we've always done them, because they're familiar, because it's the path of least resistance, even though it doesn't lead to growth. And I think that with oil, if the very first time that they tried to stop the leak worked, then it wouldn't have gotten to this devastating point which feels so horrible. And it wouldn't have gotten the degree of media attention that it's getting now. And so the reason I feel that on a global level this is happening is because it's going to serve as a catalyst for us to look for different ways of interacting with the earth in terms of how do we fuel ourselves. Of course, solar and wind have a lot of room to grow, and I also have been seeing various sources reporting that nuclear energy is a lot safer than we've been told to believe, and that Chernobyl was a horrible accident, but it was a poorly designed facility, and 3 Mile Island was not as bad as reported in terms of actual kind of injury to people and so forth. And these facilities, we haven't built new one in America for a long time. Decades ago, I believe, the last one was built. And in other countries, they are using nuclear energy very efficiently. And the waste can be disposed of in a way that is, I believe, safe. And it doesn't produce the same kind of poisoning of the atmosphere and the environment that leads to global warming and other problems that oil and coal do. Clearly do, and we know they do lead to problems, but it's like breaking an addiction. And I think that this oil spill, in terms of any kind of addiction, sometimes there has to be a rock bottom. And I think that this is, for our country, a feeling of hitting rock bottom in terms of our relationship with oil and questioning its functionality. And so, even though it is tough to watch, I think on a certain level it has to be bad for us to really question things. Because, I saw an image today of a pelican, some video footage of a pelican that was just covered in oil. It was just so sad, you know, so sad to see that. And I think that this sadness and this frustration and anger that people feel, it can be used to just feel victimized, feel like we need to point fingers and that kind of thing like that and blame people. But I think that the energy behind the sadness and the anger can be shifted towards a greater focus upon what are we going to do to make sure that we break our dependence upon oil. Because not only does it pollute the world, but it also ties us to the Middle East in a way that we would not be tied on terms of military involvement, I believe, and in terms of just an overall investment of what is going on over there. It's like, you know, it's like if you're a heroin addict and your dealer is dysfunctional, and every time you get your heroin, you know, it's annoying because he wants to talk about all this crazy shit and you don't know if he's going to freak out and shoot you or something like that. But you need the heroin, and so you keep putting up with him. And that's what it's like with our involvement and connection to oil-rich countries, is that we would like to be spending more time with harmonious international relationships and not getting enmeshed. But as long as we're oil addicted, we got to keep these dysfunctional dealer type dynamics involved in our lives. So this can be a good thing, as painful as it is now to watch. This can be a catalyst for good.